An anxiety-inducing romp. Welcome to Groovy Movies. My name is Lily Austin.
And I'm James Brailsford. Hello.
Hello. How are you doing, James? How was your weekend?
My weekend was great, thanks. It was spent doing one of my favourite pastimes, which is watching films on film. It was the Bradford widescreen weekend, I think 29th anniversary of it, so almost coming up to the 30th. And yeah, sat back watching films on the big screen from Film Prints.
I remember you talked about this a few weeks ago. Did it live up to all your expectations?
It really did, you know. It delivered exactly what I was hoping for. It's just a well-curated, interesting selection of films. They had a Jack Lemmon strand, you know, because yes, the overall thing is we're watching widescreen films, usually off a film print, but within that they had a Korean film section, they had a Jack Lemmon section, they even had a Julie Andrews section. They screened Victor Victoria. Yeah.
Oh my God! Yes, please.
Yeah, it's like they had. There's a bit of something for everybody. But I was there yesterday with my partner to watch Baraka, which is a wordless documentary. It's a globe-hopping trip around parts of the world that you may not have seen, or may, you know, I mean, it was made in 91, so maybe they're a bit more familiar to us now. But even, you know, I watched it and there was a whole part of the world that I hadn't seen before. The access to different locations where you're never going to get before. And all of it was shot on beautiful 70mm film. So you are watching these gorgeous vistas, or in fact, sometimes incredible close-ups of things, but just in this really pristine, beautiful film format. And it's a film that I deliberately held off watching until I could see it at the cinema from a film print, because I knew that watching it on a small screen, it just wouldn't be the same. It would probably be a little bit boring, in fact. But, you know, surround sound, beautiful picture on a big screen, you know, I was chatting to my partner afterwards. We were both having a bit of a funny day. We were both feeling, I don't know, a bit stressed out, just a bit wired. Went to see the film, came out of the other end, and we were just completely soothed and calm. We were different people, you know, the transformative nature of a film experience. But Lily, what about yourself? Because, you know, I was scrolling through my Instagram last night and it looked like you had an interesting, perhaps David Lynch-themed evening last night. I don't know. Tell me more.
Oh, gosh. I feel so bad. This was definitely false advertising on my part. I got a few excited DMs about
Are you doing the classic, your social media life doesn't reflect your real life? Come on, Lily. Tell us the scratch beneath the surface.
I'm so dishonest. Well, my husband Leo and I, we went to the Genesis Cinema in Whitechapel, which I think is one of the loveliest independent cinemas in London, though I am biased because I live around there. But they've been doing this. They're in the midst, I believe, of a David Lynch season there, and what we found ourselves walking into, I believe, was the tail end of a David Lynch quiz, complete with tables filled with donuts and pie. Because if you remember, Special Agent Dale Cooper loves a pie, loves a donut, and the cocktail.
And loves a damn fine coffee.
Exactly, he loves a damn fine coffee. So there were espresso martinis on offer for those who wanted to partake. So we did partake, but we had kind of missed the main event, and there were also like lots of merch. You could buy coffee that was branded with the coffee shop from Twin Peaks, so it was really fun.
Wow.
And then it was full of people, and then they all piled in to see a David Lynch movie. I didn't actually ask which one, but everyone seemed very excited. But actually I have to admit that was just a lucky circumstance. That was chance, because I was there to see one battle after another for the second time. Which, of course, is what we're going to be talking about this week. You guys, if you're devoted listeners to this podcast, you know we've been talking about it for some time. So we're going to cover that today. And also, kind of off the back of that, we're going to look at the other movies that are right now seem to be in the race for the Oscars, though we admit quite early on. But we're going to give you a few suggestions of what you should be looking out for if you're interested in seeing some Oscar bait movies this year.
Absolutely, want to be fully prepped as we go into the award season.
Exactly.
I'm a little jelly that you've already had your second viewing of One Battle After Another in, because I've got mine coming this Wednesday coming up. So you know, just a spoiler alert as my thoughts on the film. It's currently at a 4.5 in my letterbox, because I don't, you know me, Lily, I don't throw a 5-star round willy nilly. So I just need one more viewing just to just decide. I think it's a 5. I've got to be honest. I can't think why it wouldn't be. But, I just don't throw them around every day. So second viewing is essential, I think. Plus, I want to see it again.
I did think, I felt kind of proud about the fact I was going to be able to tell you that, James, I've already seen it for a second time. I win our race. But then on the other hand, I don't think you would have approved of the conditions in which I saw this movie. So,
but we can get to talk about that as far as, that kind of element of it. Yes, it's certainly not on the, I don't know if you saw it going round on Warner Brothers. They're doing like a little bingo card where you tick off the different formats that you've seen it on. So, the first one is VistaVision. Big tick on that one. Then there's IMAX 70mm. Oh, no, we'll get to this later. But anyway, that your viewing wouldn't be on the tick list. But, I'm
Hey, you don't know that. But yes,
I've seen the tick list. I've seen the tick list.
But you don't know what I saw in it. Okay, yeah, it was definitely a more humble, modest type screening than the one you and I saw a couple of weeks before. Because
what a treat! To
give you a little peek behind the curtain, I think we might have mentioned this. We went to a press screening of One Battle After Another, and for James, to speak for you, James, it's not the easiest thing for him to come to press screenings because they are usually in London, and James lives in Manchester. But you made the trip.
Oh, yeah, there was no way I was going to miss this on multiple levels. One, it's Paul Thomas Anderson's latest film, and I'm a big Paul Thomas Anderson film. I have been ever since I saw Boogie Nights in Bradford, the same place was this weekend, on a 35mm print in 1998. Been a huge fan since then. So there was that, but also the once-in-a-lifetime, I would say, opportunity to see a film shot in VistaVision, a film format projected in VistaVision. To me, that was absolutely unmissable. So, I can't really afford to come to London regularly. It's not something that is easy for me to do, but this was like I had to figure a way out. And because of my schedule as well, this was a round trip in the same day. There was no staying over. It was like, get on the cheapest train I could find, get on the last train back, by the way, which annoyingly meant I had to miss the very last few minutes. I mean,
which I have to tell you, James, is why you must see the film on Wednesday, because something happened right after you left, and I was like, oh my God. It seemed like the perfect moment for you to leave, but actually, of course, there was a final little kicker that I was like, oh God.
Damn. So luckily I am. But yeah, I felt like the majority, the main story beat felt like it had wrapped up and we were on the wind down. But yeah, I did also think because the film's so well paced, there'll be something.
Yes.
It won't stop. It won't stop until the very end,
But that we had this whole thing when we received the invitation, the press screening, they didn't actually say. They said it was multimedia, which they normally say, but there was no mention of it being VistaVision. And I rather negatively said, oh, it probably won't be,
And I was holding out hope, Lily. I was holding out hope.
But then we got the clue because there's a particular cinema that these films are usually screened at, these press screenings. And instead it was being screened at the Odeon Lux, which we know is where the one place, I believe, in London where they're showing it.
In the UK, well.
In the UK as well?
The one place in Europe, Lily.
Oh my God. The one place in Europe where you can see One Battle After Another projected on VistaVision. So we had high hopes, but we didn't actually know for sure. So James did buy a couple of backup tickets for next weekend, just in case. But it all worked out. And actually, you weren't even the person who'd come the furthest, because we got talking to a guy on the line who came all the way from Edinburgh. So.
Oh yeah.
This film, it moves people. It gets people getting on trains, taking long journeys. But anyway, let's get into it.
This is Bob Ferguson. I was a part of the French 75.
Bitch, I felt like Tony Montana!
Steve Lockjaw just attacked my home. And I cannot remember, for the life of my only child, the answer to your question.
Maybe you should have studied the rebellion text a little harder.
I need to find my daughter.
Well, then call us back when you have the time.
I feel like we should give a plot summary, but I listened to an interview of Paul Thomas Anderson speaking about the film, and he clearly doesn't really want to go into too much detail. But what he did say was, it's a film that looks at what happens when revolutionaries crumble in on themselves. And I sort of think that, yes, it's kind of that. You start 18 years prior with a revolutionary group, and then we move forward in time to kind of a sort of present day, though it doesn't feel like exactly an accurate depiction of now. And it's looking at what's happened to the to some of the members after that, and their past coming back to haunt them.
Yeah, I would say that's a very good spoiler-free setting. Yes.
But it's very vague. I'm not, maybe that's unhelpful, and we'll probably get a little bit more into detail as we go. But I would say that's roughly what you're looking at.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, and if you want me to give you like an overview of what I kind of try and summarize it to people as, is essentially that's exactly what it is. But it's also like a very breezy action adventure comedy kind of film. That's kind of constantly a touch point for it as well. There's always there's a lot of action. There's a lot of humor in it. But there's it's not a lightweight film. But I found it more of a romp than anything when I was watching it.
I wouldn't say breezy or romp myself. I found it quite, I think what Paul Thomas Anderson does so well is that kind of tension building, anxiety inducing vibe. If you think about a film like Magnolia or Punch Drunk Love, right? These films.
Or The Master.
Or The Master. But I feel like The Master perhaps had a slightly slower pace to it, maybe.
Oh, yeah, it's very slow.
Yeah, whereas Punch Drunk Love is quite kinetic, right? And so is Magnolia really is. So I think that for me, I can see the connection there between them and that kind of energy that he wants to bring to it. So for me, the tension of it stopped it being too rompish. But on the other hand, you're totally right, because it's laugh out loud funny. Yeah, you're right. It is a romp. It's a romp, but it's an anxiety-inducing romp.
Absolutely. I mean, I'm with you on the anxiety. There's some sequences in there. I was describing it to a friend, saying it's like a Hitchcock sequence. Again, no spoilers to what that sequence is, or those are, but
so now I need to try and guess which one you're talking about. But go on.
No, but there are some set pieces that are like classic Hitchcock in the way that they increase the anxiety and the tension, and the kind of they get you up to a peak and pull you back down, and there's a surprise. It's masterfully done. This is a film that he could only have made this point in his career, where he's kind of, the thing about Paul Thomas Anderson's back catalogue is it is very eclectic. I mean, this is yet another different type of film that he hasn't made before. When you look at his back catalogue, almost unlike Nolan or Tarantino, he doesn't really, he always seems to push himself or try a new genre.
Yes, that is why for me, and this film kind of crystallized and confirmed that for me, Paul Thomas Anderson is the best director, because he is an auteur, if we want to use that wanky, pretentious term. He does have a very clear style and vision, but he utilizes that for so many different kinds of genres and types of story. There's, like you said, it's so eclectic and varied that it means that he is always challenging himself and pushing himself. You can't really, I mean, the fact that this film follows after Licorice Pizza, which is such a different kind of a film, could not be more different, and much kind of more smaller, almost domestic, adolescent nostalgia dripped. Most of his films are not set this is his first film set in the present day.
Magnolia wasn't it? I think it's his first film in decades.
You're right. Magnolia was that, but okay, it's his first film set in this decade, in this century. So, first film with mobile phones. So it's something different for him again, and I find that really impressive. But I have to tell you, James, it took me a second time to watch it to really get on board with this film. I had some misgivings after we watched it the first time.
Okay, what were your misgivings?
Well, so I came at this film in the wrong way. I'd heard a lot about it, right? And for example, Steven Spielberg said something along the lines of, this film is even more prescient today than when Paul Thomas Anderson first started writing it, because he actually said that he remembers starting to work on it in the 1999. He's been working on this for 25 years, this film, from the beginning. And I saw other quotes of that ilk talking about how it's such an important movie for this time. So if you have that in your head, as I did, I was going in expecting it to be a film, because and I'd seen the trailer, and there are clips of a detention center. It's set on the border with Mexico. So you go in with, I had some idea of what the film was going to be about. And if you go in with these grandiose statements about it being an important film for this moment and the kind of political landscape that we're in, honestly, I think you will be slightly disappointed, because I went in with that and then I was quite dissatisfied with the fact that it didn't really go into it. It seemed to me that the detention centers and the Mexican immigrants and the African American revolutionaries that start off the film are essentially, I read it as like window dressing for the main action, Leonardo DiCaprio's character being the, lead of this movie. And I don't think that's incorrect, I have to say. Like, I think that is a reading you can have of the film. But the thing is, that is not what Paul Thomas Anderson was trying to do with this movie. And hearing his talking about it, he actually seemed to quite disagree with Steven Spielberg's charge of saying this film is even more precedent. He said, well, actually, I think that if anything, it shows that the more you try and change things, the more revolutionaries try and make change, the more things stay the same. It's ever thus. And ultimately, at the end of the day, humans are inherently selfish and are driven by their own motivations. And that's always what's going to come through. So actually, honestly, the film has quite a nihilistic, I'd say, undertone to the whole thing. But it makes it a very compelling watch. And I think once I was able to separate the film from, I think, other people's misreadings of it, or maybe just, I don't know, tokenistic understanding, not to completely diss anyone who said it's like an important movie for this time, because it is in some ways. I don't know. I went in with a preconception, and it left me wanting, but going in and taking it for what it is, I think it's a masterful film, really beautiful, and an excellent script and incredible characterization, which I'm sure we'll get into.
Yeah. I mean, it's, I was wondering what your take was going to be on it after the initial viewing. I think I went into it hoping that it was going to be what it did turn out, which was kind of an American film of the 70s, where you may integrate things that are maybe current, maybe happening in the world, but it doesn't become about that. That's, like you say, window dressing to a degree, but it's essential, or I call it like world building, like choosing to set it in that world. And you're quite right. It is about, when we cut between, there's not much time spent in the kind of past of the story, the 90s, but essentially nothing's changed. That's the thing, isn't it? And, Bob, our central revolutionary, he's the fire and the passion's gone, and part of the joy of the film is to see that kind of start getting kindled again. But yeah, for me, it was what I was hoping, which was it was just the world of the film rather than the topic of the film, perhaps.
Yes, I agree. Yes, but well, I don't know. I think the world of the film was part of it. It just, I don't know. It's.
What we didn't get is the catharsis of the revolutionaries, I don't know, successfully freeing immigrants from the immigration centers or anything like that. That wasn't where the world doesn't change throughout the film. It's a very small scale stakes and story in reality. So it's not like we're not seeing the evil empire being destroyed and the Death Star blowing up. We're not seeing that kind of thing happen in this story.
No, which I would never want from a movie. Obviously, I don't like big movies, but I think
the Death Star blowing up. don't take my Death Star blowing up. No,
you can have it, but I don't want it. But no, I'm just saying. Yeah, it's not that I wanted more of that kind of action. It was more that it's a classic criticism, I guess. But the thing that was for me a sadness of this movie, and I did find frustrating watching it the first time, and I think I've moved into more just acceptance. Well, that's just not what the film was. But Teyana Taylor's character is complete lightning on screen, and yet we don't see very much of her during the film. I would have liked to have had more of her.
True, but like you say, she lights up the screen when she's there, and her presence is somehow felt by her absence throughout the rest of the film. You miss that energy, and it kind of, I don't know, that's the point of the rest of the film, is she's not there. Yes,
you're so smart. It's a good point. It does. And that's part of what makes it a compelling watch, yes, because her shadow is there over the family that she's not around.
It's so hard. It's so hard to really get into this film without trying to spoil it for you, because it genuinely is throughout. There's even little story beats where suddenly the story just swerves one way, and then you're like, how, it's the classic thing of how they're going to get out of this, and you don't figure it out. Yeah, it just.
Yes. Okay. Well, we're skirting around. We're jumping around things. I hope this isn't too frustrating to listen to, but I do want to talk about some of the characters, because I think this is another trademark Paul Thomas Anderson trope, or maybe not trope, but like skill, is that he is incredibly good at creating fully formed characters who are always a little bit eccentric in their way, but are very fleshed out. So obviously Leonardo DiCaprio kind of leads the film. He plays someone called Ghetto Pat, is his nickname. But around him, there are all these other fantastic characters. We've got to talk about Chase Infinity, who plays his daughter.
I mean, her first screen role, absolutely incredible. She holds her own against on the screen against Leonardo DiCaprio. You know, like it's nothing. I mean, she was a complete revelation. And I did read that Paul Thomas Anderson said the film wouldn't have happened until he found Chase Infinity. He said he didn't want to be too LA and woo-woo about it, but basically finding her is what finally made the film happen. And if that character hadn't have worked, certainly it would have been hard to have been invested in Ghetto Pat, or Bob Ferguson, as he became known in his other life.
Absolutely. And then, yes, we've mentioned Teyana Taylor, who plays someone called Perfidia Beverly Hills. I kind of love that there are so many eccentrically named characters in this film, but then we have Chase Infinity, the actor with the best name of them all.
Oh, yeah, but can we talk about how Chase Infinity happened to be named Chase Infinity? Have you read the story? Oh,
no,
right.
Tell me.
It's two movie quotes. So her parents are, from what I understand, not in the film business or anything. They're not Hollywood, but they named her first name is after a character from Batman Forever. Nicole Kidman plays, I think, she plays a psychiatrist, and I think she's called Madison Chase or Meridian Chase, something like that. But her surname is Chase, okay? And then, so they loved that film, or they loved that character. So that's the first name sort of. Then any guess where Infinity comes from?
Infinity, it's on the tip of my tongue. Something Infinity.
To infinity and
beyond?
Yeah.
Are you serious? Buzz Lightyear.
100% serious, 100% serious. Chase Infinity has told the story in various interview outlets herself. Yeah.
But Infinity is sort of is that her middle name, or did they change their surnames? That's what. Okay, fine. I'll ask no more questions. I'm nitpicking.
Yeah.
Whatever it is, it's a fantastic name.
Great. And sorry, we're back to goddamn Sean Penn was so good. Yeah.
And another excellent name, Stephen J. Lockjaw. I mean, perfection.
And he just gives it this weird physicality where there's twitches, and it's like he's uncomfortable in his own skin, and he's uncomfortable with who he is. That's what it just feels like there's this battle going on inside him.
Exactly. Everything about his personality is there writ large on his body. Honestly, if there was an Oscar for walking, like he would be unmistakable. It's incredible. Yeah, the physicality, just watching him, you feel this mix of pity and hilarity. And I was thinking about this, and I think this is a skill of Paul Thomas Anderson in the way he writes characters, but also Sean Penn's aptitude for bringing this to life, is that character could have been a cartoon villain.
Like a stock villain, yeah.
Exactly. But he brings so much like sympathy, he invokes so much sympathy, but also pity, really. He's a pathetic character as well as being, ruthless. And I think that mix makes it so poignant and powerful, and really brings his character to life in such a kind of engrossing way. Every time he was on screen, I was just kind of transfixed.
You are both revulsed by him because he is the villain, but also you do feel kind of sad for him, or
to me, he is so. It all to me seems to be stemming from a completely profound lack of love, which I think is actually, Leia and I, we rewatched Magnolia this week. In one sitting, can I say? Incredible, because it's a 3-hour-long film. I hadn't planned to, but it's just so good I couldn't turn it off. And then and we were talking about what we think the film is about, and he said to me, because we were saying, it's about dysfunctional men, bad fathers, and they said, actually, I think it's about love. It's about people wanting love and not having enough love, it being withheld from them, and the consequence of that. And I think it's the same with One Battle After Another, honestly. Certainly with Lockjaw's character, I feel like so much of it is coming from his complete lack of human kindness and love.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. I'm going to say I think he's a strong contender for the best supporting actor role.
No, yeah, I mean, no doubt about it. He's getting it. That's a surefire thing. I'll be interested to see what happens with Best Actress and Best Supporting Actress nominations, because when I was looking at predictions for the Oscars like a few weeks and months ago, clearly because no one had yet seen the film, Regina Hall had been thrown out a few times, but like there was not much attention given to Teyana Taylor, not much to Chase Infinity, when I think then they were really like bigger characters in the film and both fantastic. But I'm not quite sure where it's going to sit because, you know, Leonardo DiCaprio is really the lead of the movie.
Yeah, he is, but he doesn't dominate the film. He certainly shares the screen with all these other characters, and that's the thing I think about Paul Thomas Anderson. He just kind of juggles all these different characters and all these different stars, really. I mean, you've got a lot of talent on screen that none of them particularly dominate. I also love Benicio del Toro. I mean, you know, he's more than a cameo, but he's certainly like, you know, he's not a main part of the film, but every time he pops up, he just brings his that, I don't know, there's an energy to his performance. He's like, you know, he's probably the most comic character in the film, and every time he pops up, it's like you kind of get excited that he's on the screen. And yeah, again, he's involved with some of the plot twists and turns, and you know, yeah.
Well, yes. I mean, no spoilers, but I would say that for me, the comedy really is any time that the Christmas Adventurers Club is on screen. but we won't go. I won't say any more about that. That name alone, I think, should entice some of our listeners to watch this movie.
Absolutely.
I don't know where Paul Thomas Anderson's skill for comedy comes from, because to make you laugh whilst also like horrify you but also make you feel this kind of like deep sense of recognition. It's like in a comedic way to completely nail a certain type of person, in this case a white supremacist. It's just like incredible stuff.
Yeah, really, it really is.
But let's talk about, James, I've distracted you for long enough. Let's talk about what you want to talk about. Why do you think Paul Thomas Anderson wanted to film in this division?
I think there's a number of reasons, and let me go through them. So I think number one, every film he's ever made, like Christopher Nolan and Quentin Tarantino, has been shot on film. The first reason is because it's the highest resolution for imaging format in the world. But beyond that, I mean, because you can argue that digital cameras have got bigger, but there's also nothing quite looks like film. There is a quality to the colors, to the richness, to the contrast that only film has. So there's that if you're making a $150 million budget, then as Christopher Nolan says, he says that he almost feels a duty to the audience to present the film at the highest possible quality he can. And film is still the best. So there's that. I think there's also, if you want to give your film a timeless quality, then shoot it on film, because you are immediately evoking the last 100 years almost of film history, whereas it's only the past 10 years really that the industry shifted to these digital images. And as close as digital's getting, it's still, you have to simulate film, and it still doesn't look the same. But there's also on set, shooting on film. There's a discipline and there's a focus that shooting on a medium that costs you hundreds of dollars just to do a take. You know, it focuses the set, it makes things sharper. I also think for the actors, not only to be shooting on film, but shooting on this very 1950s format called VistaVision, that is a particular type of a 35mm film that runs sideways horizontally through the camera, gives you more negative area, which means the quality is even better still than normal 35. Just means that I think for the actors, they know that they're working on something that is a cut above what they would normally work on. So there's all those so there's a mixture of image quality, psychological elements, and then releasing it. I mean, one, you could just say right down it's a gimmick. Two, by shooting on this larger format, it means that when you blow it up to IMAX, where it's also been, you know, I think the VistaVision format is Paul Thomas Anderson, he tweeted, X'd, whatever, that VistaVision is the number one format you get to see it on if possible, then IMAX the second. So it means that the quality will look better when it's blown up on that huge IMAX screen. So, yeah, they're a bunch of the reasons why. And then to see it projected on VistaVision, I mean, I think they managed to restore 3 VistaVision projectors. Because remember, VistaVision projection, even back in the 50s and 60s, when it was a Paramount format, because all the different studios had different rival film formats they brought out to compete with television. So Paramount was VistaVision, and Hitchcock used it to shoot Vertigo, to shoot North by Northwest. So again, by shooting on VistaVision, you're invoking that era to some degree. So yeah, there's very few, so they had to recondition the few VistaVision projectors that remain, which means that when you make a film print, so you shoot on camera negative, you make an immediate print of that VistaVision negative. There's no blowing it up, reducing it, having to do anything. You are getting like the purest recreation of what was shot in the camera projected in front of you.
Okay.
So those are my list of reasons why to shoot VistaVision.
I also, I heard Paul Thomas Anderson say in the interview that I listened to that VistaVision is really great for broad shots, like vistas, literally VistaVision,
VistaVision,
background, but also really good at close-ups as well.
Yeah,
which I guess not every camera can do both.
Well, like when you get these without going into too much detail, these super widescreen formats, the lenses can distort faces when they get closer to the camera and things like that. Whereas VistaVision, it's very flattering to faces. It's very good for wide shots as well. Yeah. So my question to you is, I mean, and I loved it when I saw it at the, I was very, to me, I was absolutely in heaven. This was like what I pay money to go to the cinema for. It's a great film. It's going to be a great film if you watch it on TV. It's that's not, seeing it on VistaVision isn't going to make it any better or worse, but as an experience, as going to the cinema, that's what I classify as going to the cinema. It's giving you a good story, and then just the icing on top is this. I found myself just it allows me to lose myself in the film just an extra percentage more, and I'll take that extra percentage any day. So my question to you, Lily, is you saw it a second time. Could you notice any discernible difference by seeing it at Genesis, or did it kind of look about the same? Or, I'm just curious.
Oh, I don't know, because it's obviously it was quite a small cinema. I have to say, the thing that was slightly disheartening about running into this David Lynch event happening upstairs was the realization that the bigger screen was being taken up by Lynch fans. A kind of well-established IP had taken over the main cinema, and instead, what is clearly, I think, at this point in the year, like the film of the year, right? And a film led by one of our only still remaining bankable stars, and that film instead was being shown in a much smaller cinema, and I have to admit there were probably 10 to 15 people in the cinema. So that was a little bit disheartening. But I think in that environment, I feel like the environment was more what I was aware of. It was obviously could not have been more different than us watching it on this huge screen, surrounded by everyone's devoted fans around us, the very comfortable chairs. I mean, the Odeon Lux is, if you're on that the ground level closer to the screen, is what my recommendation. Don't go upstairs. It was fabulous, and so I have to say that I don't know if I really was. Because I do not have the eye that you have for these sorts of things, James. So I don't know if really the screen, other than the size, if I was really noticing that much different visually, I have to admit. It was more just the general atmosphere and vibe was just not quite as...
Sounds dead, yeah.
Nice.
It doesn't sound like...
But, but everyone around me, the people, these girls behind me were like whittering away to each other throughout. But about the film. They were clearly into it. But, oh my God, I was literally like, what has happened to kids of today? Like, does no one understand what the cinema experience is? But, people were clearly into it still. So, it wasn't as wonderful as when we saw it. But I would say it's still a really great cinema experience.
No, I was just thanks for letting me. I was just curious. It is like, how much is it my super anal visual attention to detail, and how much does it make a big difference? I mean, and I imagine as well, it was a much smaller screen in the Genesis screen too. Much smaller. Yeah, really. I mean, we sat down and Leo said we might as well have just watched it on our laptop, which is a bit of an exaggeration. It was definitely an exaggeration. But I mean, look, I'd said to him, maybe we should wait. You should see it in VistaVision, but he said he was keen to watch it. He didn't really give a fuck about that. And I did, out of curiosity, I did have a look. And of course, apart from really bad seats on the side, all of the seats at the VistaVision screenings for that day were sold out. So that's good at least, because I was slightly disheartened. I was like, oh my gosh, this is such a big film. And it's on in this tiny screen. But I mean, we should talk about that. I want to talk about
the budget and the predictions, because, as you mentioned, this is a 150 mil budget, which is a big budget, but a particularly big one for Paul Thomas Anderson. It's the cost of all of his previous films combined.
Which is mad. That is mad.
Yes. And obviously there's no way he could have secured that budget without Leonardo DiCaprio leading the film. I was very interested to hear that he actually originally cast Leonardo DiCaprio in Boogie Nights, but Leonardo DiCaprio passed over it to do Titanic, and then very kindly recommended Mark Wahlberg, who at that point was thought of very much as like an underwear model and not much else, but recommended him instead for this film. And I think that was definitely the right call. Like, well,
right
Mark
choice,
Wahlberg is perfect in Boogie Nights.
He is Dirk Diggler.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it's his biggest budget, but it's all on screen, because the thing, one of the many things I love about Paul Thomas Anderson, he's a filmmaker in that kind of league of, he puts it all on screen. You give him with a small budget. I mean, like, look at Phantom Thread. It's an immaculate period film, but it again made, I don't know what the budget was, maybe 20 million or something, 30 million, but he makes very good looking, very high production value with minimal budget. So you give him 150 million, and again, it's all on screen. I mean, one of the things which I haven't even touched on is the action is impeccable. This is an action film where the film does not stop for an action sequence. It's perfectly integrated into the story. It lasts the right amount of time. It has its impact. We don't like a typical American action film where the plot just stops and we have a fight scene and then the plot continues. And you can tell most of it was done for real. Most of it's done practically. So you never once get pulled out by a bad visual effect or some obvious CG or something that defies the laws of physics. Car crashes feel solid and real. When people fall, you feel it, that you feel those impacts. Because, I mean, I did hear that there were some CG, and I've no doubt about it, but it's clearly predominantly practical effect, practical stunt work. And so that's where your $150 million goes. That's, to me, I was watching thinking, this is what $150 million should be spent on an American film. And yet now we budgets are now getting to $250 million, and they're just CGI from the first frame to the last. Yeah.
I mean, I totally agree. But, it's definitely a gamble for a film that's, okay, it's not a totally original story, but, it's a non-IP script. It's very unusual for those kinds of films to be even over like 100 mil.
Oh, yeah.
And I read that 41% of cinema goers to this movie are going for Leonardo DiCaprio. People aren't really aware of Paul Thomas Anderson. He hasn't had, it's interesting. I think he's as significant as Tarantino says. He's part of that kind of cohort of auteur Hollywood directors who were kind of going outside of mainstream movie making. And he hasn't had the same kind of cut through.
No, he's a director in my mind, Paul Thomas Anderson. Well, I mean, he is a big director and he's an important director, but every time I see his box office is like that. But, he doesn't get mass audiences going to see his films, and which is absolutely gutting. It's like, what do you want, cinema audiences? But, his box offices are very modest, but even though I think the films he makes are of huge, that cultural impact or importance in cinema history. And
just fantastic movies. And like you said, it's crazy that films that cost so much more look so terrible in comparison. He makes gorgeous looking films, the camera work, the way he tells his stories visually, and then also the script. And as I said, these incredible characters, the casting, he's so good at casting.
It's really good. Like that, think about all the different things you have to get right there. We've gone from how good his scripts are to how good his casting is to how good his work. The thing he loves the most is he calls it doing the work with the actors. That's the thing he loves, because he said that this is his most action, but he said the thing about action, that even though it's exciting to watch, it's not that exciting to direct. He said for him, the exciting thing was getting in there with the actors and doing that work. But all these things, I was watching there's some shots in One Battle After Another where there's characters in the foreground running, and in the background, in the distance, there's police cars going past, and, orchestrating, that level of detail. I mean, it's there in Boogie Nights on a smaller scale, but, just that's one skill to have, but he's got so many other skills as well. He's a genius, really.
But what's so good is that I feel like those films all look really beautiful and expensive. They're all small budget movies, but they don't look to me like small budget movies at all.
No, that's what I'm saying.
Maybe Punch Drunk Love, maybe, but his others.
But it's a small story, though.
Yeah. And I mean, it suits what it is.
Yeah, that's what I love about him is that's what I mean about how he takes a small budget, is that they always feel big. The stories feel big, the way he shoots them, because you can, if you use the right camera angles and you get good locations, you can always add real scale to things with how you shoot it. I mean, again, to me, that's what makes you a good director.
But it does seem like, despite him being lesser known, I mean, the stroke of genius really was in casting Leonardo DiCaprio. And I think, I think often Leonardo DiCaprio plays the same character. He's not an Oscar Isaacs or a Daniel Day-Lewis who changes with every part. He really does play himself. But in this film, I feel like it's the best I've seen him doing Leonardo DiCaprio. It really fits perfectly with this role. And I'm sure Paul Thomas Anderson wrote it with this and him in mind. And it's kind of cool because I feel like Paul Thomas Anderson has such a successful career building to this point. And now it looks like, the box office predictions are fantastic. It's set to hit 21 million domestically for its opening weekend, which is really solid. And they're predicting 50 million overseas by the end of the weekend. So I feel like he's
50 million overseas plus 21 domestic. So what, 70 something, or is that 50 million total?
No, I think sorry. 50 million total.
It's like, oh, God damn it. It's like, what do audiences want? What do they want?
Okay, look, that's the best he's ever done in his career up to date. And I think this film will have legs for sure. It's definitely going to have word of mouth. I mean, come on, I've seen it a second time. You're going to see it 3 times. We're doing the work. Guys, go see it.
I know, no, I don't want to be like a downer, but it's like, it just feels like, you're right. It definitely will have legs. There's no way this won't have legs. But of course, there's always a box office drop off, and the typical drop off is 50% after the opening weekend. So, we've got $150 million budget. We shove on $100 million for the marketing. So that's $250. So it needs to make, it needs to make $500 million to break even. That's like,
okay, when you put it like that.
Yeah, I hate to be that guy because the thing is, when you read the trades, it is a positive spin, and all the things you said are absolutely true. But when you just look at the cold hard numbers, it needs to. I mean, I think Warner Brothers kind of maybe know it's never going to make its money back, but this will be a evergreen classic that people, it's always going to generate some money. People are always going to want to watch it.
And this is definitely moving us into the other thing we wanted to talk about this episode: Oscar predictions, award season buzz, what's going to do well. Maybe the film is going to struggle a little bit at the box office to make a profit. It will even break even by the looks of things. But across the board, 5 stars everywhere. Critics love it. Mm-hmm. I've compiled I decided to make an Oscar tracker, James, because we're very interested in the awards season, questions about the kind of sense of giving awards to these films, because obviously art is subjective. I won't even take us down that path right now, but it is very interesting and very important for business in Hollywood that for films to get this kind of attention. And obviously it is a bit of the films are often made with the Oscars in mind. I don't think this film was that, but it was very interesting to look over articles about Oscar predictions, some of which began in kind of February, March this year. So very, very early doors, when probably the people putting these lists together hadn't really seen maybe any of the films yet. But it's interesting because in the last week or two, the hype around One Battle After Another has reached a kind of fever pitch. And this film has jumped to the top of these lists. For Best Picture, Paul Thomas Anderson; for Best Director, of course, Leonardo DiCaprio; for Best Actor. As I said, a little bit unclear about the actress Oscars, but we haven't had an Oppenheimer this year. There hasn't been that big breakout movie so far. And so this one is the one. This is the one now. I think we're here with it.
I mean, I was looking at. I couldn't remember if Paul Thomas Anderson actually won an Oscar. He's been nominated, I think, 11 times in different categories. But it feels like it's his time. It's his, Christopher Nolan. It was Christopher Nolan's time with Oppenheimer. Whether you think it was worthy or not, but it's Hollywood. It's time to anoint them. So I think, and also I think, unlike when Scorsese got his first Oscar for Best Director with The Departed, I don't think that was even close to his best film. Whereas I do think this is I get it. It's Paul Thomas Anderson's turn, I think, but also what a film to if you're going to win the Best Picture Oscar or Best Director Oscar, I think this is it.
Yes, I would. But having said that, it's only September. A lot can change between now and March. And so, yeah, we wanted to talk about the other films that have some buzz and some speculation around them. Really just to like make you aware, put them on your radar in case you want to see any of these movies. But I would definitely say that One Battle After Another has all the trappings of it. You know, it's made by an auteur-director, but who has an indie filmography, shot and presented on film. That's often a big tick. You know, I think that was what gave The Brutalist a head start early on, though it didn't end up doing so well last year. Critical acclaim, obviously. It's a drama, but with some comedic moments.
It's a crowd pleaser, you know.
Yeah.
So it's a well-made crowd pleaser. Which, you know, if you look back over the history of the Best Picture, especially, it's usually on that kind of end of the thing. You know?
Exactly. But you know, when I was like looking at this and sort of like looking into the other known tropes that do well at the Oscars, I found this very interesting article. It's actually a website called tvtropes.org, where they invite the users to submit a trope, and based on I think it's over 2,000 films that have been released between now and the early noughties, they'll kind of see if that film fits with it. And some very interesting things come out as being a trope that might get you an Oscar nomination. For example, an alcoholic. If the lead is an alcoholic, then it's got a good chance. It's got a 14% chance more than a film that doesn't, which fits with One Battle After Another because Leonardo DiCaprio smokes a lot of weed, drinks a lot of alcohol. And then obviously like one that's definitely come up a lot recently is being inspirationally disadvantaged, you know, the right kind of disadvantaged lead.
Or being a stoner. Oh, I don't know.
Well, I'm not sure this definitely is relevant for One Battle After Another, but I think we can see it in some of the other films that are like coming out right now. So should we talk about some of the other contenders?
Well, yeah, I mean, I'd like to start on the first one that we haven't discussed on here, but I think we've both seen, which was a film from earlier in the year, which is Sinners, Ryan Coogler's kind of
We did talk
period.
about it a little bit in our very first episode. We gave it a brief shout out, but do go on.
Sorry, thanks for... God, I wish I could remember my past. Yeah, so Sinners, I think it's got... I just think One Battle After Another is better, but it's a bloody close second, I would say. If One Battle After Another wasn't around, I would be saying Sinners might... I mean, it's quite a genre movie, which you're right, on your list of tropes, doesn't really seem to have much here, but I think it's the kind of film that Hollywood would like to kind of promote, I think, and like to reward with success, because I think it deserves it. But you're right, it doesn't really hit any of those TV tropes listings.
The thing is, the landscape has changed quite a lot in the last kind of 5-10 years. I think with the rise of streaming services, what the Oscars and the award seasons, you know, voters are looking at has kind of shifted. It used to be the case that if it was a box office hit, that's not going to do well at the Oscars. You know, they were much more into smaller budget indie movies. And I think things have changed so much because people aren't going to the cinema. They're desperate for people to go to the cinema. So actually, rewards are being given out for getting you into the cinema. So box office successes do well now. And so I think that things have slightly shifted. And so on the one hand, I think that means that Sinners has more of a chance than it would have done a few years ago because it was a huge box office success. And yes, it's not a drama. It's more of a genre horror movie type film. But I think the Oscar voters are more open to that. But then on the other hand, the film came out in April this year. It was an early runner, and one of the key things for doing well at the Oscars is coming out later in the year. So September is basically the earliest you can bring your film out and still have a chance of doing well. Mostly, I mean, Oppenheimer is an exception. You know, films have been exceptions, but so that's the only thing. I think that Sinners may just get forgotten in the mix because it came out so long ago.
I'm going to say maybe Autumn Durald might have a shot at best cinematography at the Oscars. I think. I mean, I also think One Battle After Another is going to give it a goddamn run for its money. But as far as like slightly more innovative in its cinematography, I think I'd say that's one to just keep an eye on.
Yeah, and I think that's a good shout. I want to talk about a couple of the films that haven't yet come out. Frankenstein Guillermo del Toro's new movie for Netflix is coming out in a couple of weeks' time. Now, that's an interesting one because I was quite surprised to see it on so many lists because it is a Netflix movie and generally boo Netflix. Oscars don't want to reward Netflix.
But there's a qualifying period. It's got to be 2 weeks, hasn't it? In a certain amount of cinemas, so you can still be submitted to the Oscars.
It needs to have been in the cinemas for at least 2 weeks, which Frankenstein will get that cinematic release. It's going to come out for a bit, but I'm just curious about what the kind of buzz about that film is because I kind of heard mixed reviews about it. So it'll be interesting to see if that has cut through.
Yeah. I don't know what really to expect from it, but I'm going to go check it out. It's the latest Guillermo del Toro. It's always worth seeing his films at the cinema if possible. He's a director who directs on a grand scale. So
yeah, but I mean, it seems like the main films that are appearing again and again in the list are One Battle After Another, Joachim Trier's new movie, Sentimental Value.
Why didn't you want to do the role? He wanted you to do it.
I can't work with him. My father is a very difficult person.
We're both big fans of him, so I'm very excited to see that. That has appeared in most of the lists for predictions. And Hamnet.
You touched me, and what did you see?
I saw a landscape.
Some landscape?
Mm-hmm.
Spaces. Caves. Tunnels and oceans. Undiscovered countries. Will you be brave?
Yes.
Will you be brave? Deep, dark, black void.
Hamnet is Chloe Zhao's new movie. Now, I'm really excited to see this because she's taken a break for the last few years. She's not made a film in, I think, 5 years' time.
The Eternals was a Marvel, superhero film, which doesn't really feel like that was her natural fit. I mean, I watched it because I was curious, and it's one of those things where it feels like, if Marvel comes to you and says, would you like to direct a film? The answer is, of course, yes. But, I think perhaps, I don't know what Hamnet is, but I suspect it's a more return to her filmmaking, what the kind of things that interest her.
Yeah, so she made that film a few years ago. And then, before that, won the Oscar for Nomadland, which I believe was her first film.
Yeah, it was a debut.
So incredible. And this was a smaller indie movie. And then, yes, she went to Marvel, which did seem a bit surprised. Yeah, Hamnet is based on a best-selling book and is kind of telling the story that inspired Hamlet. So it's set in kind of Shakespearean times. So a different kind of film again, starring Paul Mescal. So I think that will get
the
that
guy.
Yeah, now he has some box office. He's a bankable actor. So that's coming out in January. So keep your eyes out for that. Sentimental Value is going to come out in the UK on the 26th of December. So we've got a bit of time to wait for those movies. But that's the thing. I'm just curious about what will happen One Battle After Another. Will the film have legs to kind of withstand those later releases? I mean, I do think that what makes it stand apart is that if you want to put it the way, it has more of a grander scale to it almost than some of these other movies. So I'm hoping that will help it stand apart from the others.
One film I'm not seeing on there, and I got to say, I'm very curious to see this, but is The Bride. Have you seen the trailer for that they just released?
Was I just the same before the accident?
There wasn't any accident. Everything we did it on purpose. There's nothing left to do now but live.
The Bride. I've not even heard of that.
Oh, this is Maggie Gyllenhaal's second feature. It's a take on the Frankenstein story. It stars, get this, Christian Bale as the monster and Jessie Buckley as the bride, basically.
She's also the lead in Hamnet and is tipped
I
to
know.
win Best Actress for that. So I suspect that means it will probably get pushed out of the running because you can't have someone nominated for two different films. But I'm intrigued. I've not heard at all about that movie.
All I've heard on the various World of Real kind of gossip behind the scenes stuff is troubled production. But that I'm a sucker for a troubled production. It's getting an IMAX release. The trailer, go have it. Everybody, I recommend check it out. Just see what you think. I got no idea what to expect from this film, but it's what we would call a swing. It's a definite swing.
But I've not seen it on any list. Do you think it has potential to get some award season buzz going?
I don't know.
I think you're throwing in a curveball about a crazy...
Of course I am. That's what I'm here for, Lily. I mean, I'm here for the curveballs, right? If you just want the non-curveballs, you go and
James,
just
we're
listen to
talking
Variety.
about films that have got Oscar and award season buzz, and that film I've never heard of, so I know it doesn't have buzz. But I'm intrigued.
Contender.
I want to see it.
It could be an outside contender.
Do you know when it's coming out?
No. But, sorry, no, I don't.
Will it even make the cutoff? Because it has to come out by the end of the year in the US to even have a hope of getting an Oscar nomination.
I'm going to go with yes, with no evidence to back that up. But
it sounds. I'm colour me intrigued. We'll add a link to the show notes for that trailer. I'm definitely interested. The other thing I really want to talk about is the Best Actor category because okay, we've got Michael B. Jordan from Sinners on the list as a strong contender, and I definitely agree with that. Mm-hmm. Timothée Chalamet is apparently has got good odds for Marty Supreme, but the one that is most intriguing, I would say, is Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson, whose The Smashing Machine is coming out this weekend.
Have you ever heard of the Ultimate Fighting Championship, the UFC?
That's the bloody thing they're trying to ban.
This guy is the best he has ever seen.
Do you hate each other when you fight?
Absolutely not.
And has been very active on the red carpets. I think he's already begun his Oscar campaign by wearing glasses wherever he goes to kind of, show that he's a serious actor.
He's a serious. I know. I saw that. I was like, oh God. I have no doubt he's really good in The Smashing Machine. I've got no doubt, but it just all seems very cynical. It just Dwayne Johnson has been he's kind of very calculating, but what's happened is his box office draw he's had flop after flop, quite frankly. So this just seems like, right, I'm going to do a small independent quote unquote film and it's going to be serious. And now I've got my glasses on and it's like, I want him to win if he's good, but it just seems a little bit cynical for me. Totally.
Yeah. This is a movie directed by one of the Safdie brothers, Benny Safdie, which, in itself is like a good choice if you want a film to get some award season buzz. And it stars alongside Dwayne Johnson, Emily Blunt, who again is she's got some film appeal, I guess, because she does mainstream movies, but she's also known for doing lots of indie films. And so tick, tick. But then also, as far as I'm aware, it's based on a true story. A lot of Oscar bait movies show someone doing some kind of physical activity, be it a sport or something that is very physically enduring and requires the actor to do a lot of training and show it, especially male actors, you've got to prove that you can work hard and train and prep for a film to show that you're a really great actor. And I think the almost slightly kind of biopic style, but a drama where they put themselves in danger and they're honor before reason is the trope that's described in tvtropes.org. And I feel like that all fits with this, what I understand of this film. So it's ticking all the boxes, which makes me think, very cynical.
It's got, and also just as a side, it's mostly shot on 16mm film with the fight sequences shot on video cameras of the era to kind of evoke as if you're watching it on TV. But then I hear that the very last scene of the entire film is an IMAX shot. And if you see it at an IMAX cinema, everything's just widescreen normal apart from the very last scene. And there was a shot of Benny Safdie in what looks like a convenience store behind the scene, and he's got that massive IMAX camera on his shoulder. So colour me intrigued about that. I'm not that excited by the film in general. It just doesn't quite grab me, but I was just very intrigued by that little technical detail. What's that all about?
I'm interested. I don't have high hopes for it being the best movie I've seen this year. Certainly not after just watching one battle after another. But I'm definitely up for seeing Dwayne Johnson in a different kind of a role, even if it does seem like a completely cynical play for an Oscar.
I'm feeling really bad now for saying it's cynical, but also
no, I think it's true. It's clear. It's clear. I mean, the way he's been wanging on in interviews about how he's been pigeonholed, by your own production company. You paid for all those films you were in. I feel like it would have been a lot. Well, I think it's going to work. I mean, I was kind of surprised to see across the board in all of these articles I looked at with Oscar predictions, Dwayne Johnson is there. I don't know if maybe because it's clear, to me, it seems such an overt play at this point that maybe that's going to work against him. I think it probably would have been smarter to not say that he'd been pigeonholed and instead say that he wants a new challenge. And even to acknowledge the fact that, my movies haven't been doing so well. And so it made me question what it is it made me go back to the drawing board about what I enjoy about acting. But this is not a man who likes to show weakness. So, of course, he wouldn't have gone down that route.
Yeah, that's the thing. He couldn't say that. Yeah.
But it'll be interesting to see. We'll definitely revisit this in the kind of months to come to see how the predictions are kind of shifting over time. Because, as we saw last year with Emilia Perez, a film that seems to be a sure runner can suddenly be pulled out of the race. So things could all change.
God, I'd forgotten about that film. Yeah.
All right. So to finish up, let's do a cinema recommendation. James, what are you recommending this week?
Well, I was looking around and I've seen at the Genesis Cinema where you were just last night, an event called, let me get this right, it's by a group called Token Homo, and they're running Queer Horror Nights, Queer Joy in the Darkness. We've got Carrie, we've got the Psycho sequels. By the way, Psycho 3 is an absolute banger.
Yes, I feel like that was on our list at some point to discuss. We'll need to revisit.
Oh, yeah, directed by Anthony Perkins.
Yes, who plays Psycho, the Psycho, the Psycho of the titular Psycho.
The titular Psycho, yeah.
And I believe it's a shot by shot. Is that right?
No.
Sorry, that's the remake.
You're mistaken. That's the remake. No, that's the remake by Gus Van Sant, who did a shot-for-shot remake. Yeah.
Okay, yeah. Sorry. So we'll have to do a Psycho special at some point and discuss all of these movies.
I think that's a great idea. Actually, I would be quite up for that. So that's a smorgasbord of horror films at the Queer Horror Nights run by Token Homo.
Is that during October by any chance?
I think
spooky
it absolutely is. Yes, spooky month. And then, we don't want to be too London-centric, moving to the north, my hometown at the moment, Manchester. There's a place called CPX, and they're having a run of horror films at the moment. The Chucky films are all getting a screening, and there's some kind of horror quizzes there as well. So there's a lot going off in the next couple of months.
Very good. Okay, great. So lots of options for you for our horror fans out there during October. I also wanted to give a quick recommendation, which is one I feel we talk about quite a lot, but I just wanted to shout out the Prince Charles Cinema yet again because it seemed fitting. It's one of Paul Thomas Anderson's favourite places in London and the world, I've read him say. And they've got loads of amazing seasons going on at the moment. And the one I particularly liked the look of was Long Ass Movies. Well, actually, that I hate long ass movies, but I like that they were kind of making a virtue of it by showing various films that fit with that concept. And Paul Thomas Anderson, of course, gets a look in. Magnolia and There Will Be Blood are both being screened, and lots of Kubrick movies as well. So James, you would be Interstellar as well. So it's a big mix of kind of different time periods, different kinds of directors, and that there's also to counterbalance that. There's also a short ass movies season as well.
Great, like those.
And I just have to say that Prince Charles is such an incredible cinema because while it does show new releases, what it really does well is show films from every decade, every kind of director. You know, you're pretty much, if there's a particular film that you want to catch at the cinema that you never caught or was before your time, there's a good chance if you keep your eye on their website, you're going to find it. And that's kind of amazing because it really gives people a reason to go to the cinema, even if the films out this week aren't ones that interest you that much. So I just wanted to shout it out. I was also excited to read that they're planning on a second site in East London. They're going
that's great.
They're going to buy the Stratford Picture House and kind of take it over and reopen it. So I've high hopes for the Prince Charles Cinema going from strength to strength after quite a difficult year last year when there was an attempt to get it its contract changed, potentially be redeveloped to something else, but that seems to be on pause, and for now they're safe. So I would just say if you're in London and there's nothing on at the cinema that's really enticing you, though obviously this week you've got one battle after another, go to the Prince Charles and watch an old movie. It's really wonderful.
Absolutely. And, you know, I'm a film fan, and they're committed to showing as many of these classic films on film as possible. Yesterday, I was having a look, and almost all the films are off 35mm. So, you know, if you want to know why I keep banging on about film, go and see something at Prince Charles.
Absolutely. And if you have any independent cinemas you want to recommend to us, or any interesting events, film festivals, anything like that you would like us to shout out here, we would love to hear them. So please drop us a DM, drop us an email, groovymoviespod@gmail.com. We're here to spread the word.
Absolutely.
All right, well, that wraps up another episode of Groovy Movies. Little housekeeping announcement. Next week, unfortunately, I'm going to be in Copenhagen for work over the weekend. So we're going to be releasing a pre-recorded episode where we talk about unfilmable books that were indeed made into films, whether they were successful, do they pull it off?
You know, because some films, they call them unfilmable, but, you know, we want to see when directors attempt to do that, how successful they are. So just in case you're wondering why we don't seem to have our usual selection of current affairs and news, it's just because we recorded a little while ago. But it's still a fascinating topic and well worth tuning in for. Absolutely.
All right. So we'll see you next week. Bye, guys.
Bye.
Groovy Movies is produced and edited by us, Lily Austin and James Brailsford. And James also produced the theme music.
Follow us on Instagram and TikTok at Groovy Movies Pod, or email us groovymoviespod@gmail.com.
For more information about the films discussed, check out the show notes.